a song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, as always, because no one else is doing this show. We do have a guest from the original Deep Purple podcast joining us for Place in Line from Who Do We Think We Are, John Mottola. John, how are you?
I'm good. Is everybody surprised? Everybody surprised I'm here?
Well, only not if they looked at the title of the show that you were going to be on. But I am surprised, and we'll get into this in just a second on how you ended up on this episode. Because what I did was originally, for the guys in our text group, part of the, Deep Purple podcast team, so to speak, I sent out the spreadsheet to you guys. I'm like, sign up for whatever songs you want. And if we can schedule it and it works out, great, we'll do it. If we can't do it, that's fine. And you had signed up for a couple of episodes, and then somebody else had signed up for a couple of episodes, and somehow your name appeared on this song. And I reached out to you because I thought, wow, that's really bold, because you've been very strong in your opinion about this song on your show. And you said you didn't do it, so I said I'd take your name off, and then you texted me back. You go, you know what? No, let's do the show. So I'm curious, what made you want to do it?
Like we were talking about before the show is, even though like some of my favorite episodes are songs that I am really into, albums I'm really into, topics, from a listening point of view, like when you have the kind of opposing views or somebody that's really doesn't like something, that really makes it interesting. Like some of my favorite podcasts are episodes where they choose a song or a topic where there's, especially if there's like opposing, like, like everybody loves it, but there's this one person that hates it, or everybody just gangs up on it like, oh, this is terrible, because it's like, it's funny or it's interesting or brings another point of view to it. So I'm like, I don't know who signed me up for this episode. Somebody obviously did as a goof, and we don't know because you let everybody access the spreadsheet.
Right, yeah.
Right. But the more I thought about it, I'll just take you off. And then I thought for a minute, I'm like, no, keep it on, because I think it'll be interesting, because I think talking about something that I don't like as much would be just as interesting as, or maybe even more so than hearing me gush over something that's like, oh, it's so good.
Right.
And it sparks conversation too. Like maybe you really like it, or you'll find something in it that you like, or like you said before, maybe I'll find something that I'm like, all right, that's not that bad, which I mean, I probably will, because after all, it is Deep Purple in their heyday. So
Right.
There's got to be something there.
Yeah, I agree. And a couple of examples of the kind of podcast you're talking about would be Ultimate Catalog Clash, which we just, as you and I are recording this just last week, we recorded the season 3 wrap up that came out today, or season 5, I'm sorry, wrap up that came out today. And then Pot of Thunder is kind of, they're just picking a song to do an episode now that they've completed the Kiss catalog. And yeah, some of the opinions can be really against, and they're not shy about how they feel about the song. And I really appreciate that kind of honesty and in-depth, here's what I like and what I don't like approach.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's probably the show that I was thinking about most, was Pot of Thunder, because especially when Chris doesn't like something, it's hilarious, because he just rails it. He rails against it.
Yeah.
And it's like and sometimes it's just like the other guy's like, yeah, no, this isn't good. And sometimes like, oh, come on, man. He's just like, nah, it's awful. This sucks, and I mean, he doesn't just say it stinks. He'll give like legitimate reasons, or his reasons, of course. But
Right.
yeah, I think that that always makes for an interesting show. So that's why I thought that this would as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And speaking of feelings on songs, last night you guys recorded your Patreon live stream for the Machine Head rankings. And obviously, I've wrapped up Machine Head on this show as we're recording this. But were there anything that really surprised you in the rankings? It seemed like it's probably the toughest album to rank. You've got your probably your favorite, your least favorite, and then everything is just it's got to go somewhere.
Right, right. And it's yeah, it was tough. So I don't know if anything really um surprised me too much.
Mhm.
Maybe that Smoke on the Water wasn't lower just because fatigue factor, I
Mhm.
guess. But um I know that there were a couple of album tracks that I can't remember which one. I was surprised that Nate and I had them at kind of opposite ends of the spectrum,
Mhm.
but um yeah, and it wasn't really nothing was a shock because on that album, as we said during the show, there's really no bad songs.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we didn't like. There's just as you said, something's got to go somewhere. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, I this is the song that I love the least. It's
Right.
like I love it, but it's got to go down here because I love this one more, but I still love this one. So it's
Mhm.
like there's no bad songs on that album. Songs that
Right.
I've heard too much, maybe I'm tired of hearing, sure, but
Mhm.
bad, no.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we I talked on the show a couple of times, and you haven't heard the episodes yet, but about ear fatigue. And the thing is that I wonder, we talk about I've heard the song too many times, but we also get to that point where when we're listening to an album, that song comes up, we skip it. And I wonder on some of these songs that we say, oh, I've heard this a million times, like, have we? Or has it been a long time since we heard it because we keep saying we've heard it a million times and we bypass it? And it's like
Hmm.
we actually haven't listened to a song in a long time. So that's one of the reasons I'm glad I'm doing this show because it gives me an opportunity to say, I need to sit down and listen to this song that I haven't heard in a long time because I always skip it. Today's
Hmm.
song is one of those. When I listen to Who Do We Think We Are, I typically skip this song. It's not, I'm not worried about playing my hand because we're going to talk about it, but it's not a favorite of mine. So while I don't hate it, I'm not a big bluesy guy. Like I don't like more straightforward bluesy songs, which is one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of Lazy. And so when it comes to this song, it's kind of the same thing. It's like a basic blues song, even though it's done in a Deep Purple way. I tend to skip it. So I'm going to be curious to see, since I haven't heard it in a long time, how I feel about the song because maybe I will like it now.
Mm-hmm.
So we shall
Yeah,
see.
yep.
But we had Nate on the last episode covering Rat Bat Blues, so I'm excited to have you on covering this song and see how deep your hatred goes.
All right. Well, we're gonna find out.
Yes, we will.
The Bee Gees said, "How deep is your love? How deep is my hate?"
They also said I started a joke, which is a great song, by the way. I should cover that on Hask and Cast because that's a really interesting voicing and an interesting song. Really emotional vocal. It's one of the only songs I've heard that there's like guilt in the vocal. Like you feel like the guy feels really bad for what he did just by the way he's singing it, more so than the lyrics. And it's a pretty
Hmm.
interesting track.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll have to put that on my list of things to get to at some point. It's a pretty long list.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I know.
Let's check it out. Here is Place in Line by Deep Purple.
I'm living in this line, know my place.
So, the first thing I want to point out is this song, and you're going to crack up, but it reminds me of Speed King because the look on John's face right now.
I'm confused. I'm not cracking up. I'm confused.
So there's a style of writing that Roger talked about when he was talking about Speed King in an interview, where he got the idea from Jimi Hendrix's "Let Me Stand Next to Your Fire," where they have the riff and then they leave room for the vocal and then they play the riff in between. in between the vocal lines. And this is doing the same thing. You've got Richie playing in between Ian, and really the only thing we're getting underneath Ian is drums. So they're kind of like putting these walls of sound between the lines, but they're just leaving it pretty open for the vocals to cut through. Now I know one of the things that you don't like about this song is the verse vocals when Ian is singing in this low register. Can you pinpoint, is it because it's Ian doing it and you don't like the way he sounds, or is it you're not a fan of the style?
I just don't. I just remember. I remember a few things about when I first heard a song, but I do remember having a distinct impression of when I first heard uh, Purple vocals because when I got um, Deepest Purple, I didn't know that there were multiple vocalists.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I knew there was Ian Gillan, right? So it's like, okay, there he is on Speed King. And it's like, oh, okay, like now it's like he sounded like he almost had this kind of voice on Demon's Eye. It sounded a little bit
Mm-hmm.
different, And so I'm like, oh, he sounds a little bit different there. And then I heard Burn and I was like, wow, he sounds really different here. You know what I mean? It's like, so I didn't know
Right.
when I was a kid. I was just like, he could do all these different voices.
Sure.
But I always thought like, and conversely, like I love Demon's Eye. And I just thought that I thought his voice sounded really different there. But
Mm-hmm.
here it's like, I feel it's the same, maybe the same register, the same kind of style that he's using. But it's like, I just never liked it. It sounds kind of like he's disinterested. It sounds forced. It doesn't sound like him.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's definitely a couple octaves lower. And I know what you mean about Demon's Eye because the delivery is very different, and I love the way he sings that song. He's gritty, he's got some
Yeah.
passion in there. This one, yeah, it's the most passionless, I would say, at least during the verses anyway, until he goes back to his regular voice. But we know what was going on in the band at the time, and I have to wonder if this wasn't one of those songs that might have suffered a little bit from the just kind of the situation going on at the time.
Hmm.
Although I do hear a unity in the music, it's very tight. Everyone's playing very well together. But this feels like maybe a song that's like, well, we could do a blues. Like we need another song for the album, and I guess because it's so different, it feels more like an afterthought than something they set out
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to play my hand too early by saying everything that I think of this song, but
Right.
yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we can listen to more of it, but I mean, um,
I don't really see the
one of the
point.
things, what, yeah, just stop it right here. All right, good night,
Yeah,
everybody.
it's a great show.
Um,
Thanks.
is like this is I mean I called it this on the when we reviewed it and I keep referring to it as it's a lazy blues song. It's a
Hmm.
12 bar blues that
Yeah.
has no spark or creativity behind it. Any mid-level bar band could perform this,
Right.
and it's Deep Purple doing it on an album. And for a band that I mean, just like less than a year before released like Machine Head,
Hmm.
right? And then they put this out, and it's like everything on Machine Head, Fireball, in Rock. That stuff was so just cutting edge and inspired. And I mean, these guys fused together blues and rock and classical, and they were really they put a lot of dynamics into their music, and they were all such great musicians. And then to regress and come out with something like this, like, oh, let's just do something that has no creativity in it at all. It's like, because
Right.
look at like look at like Lazy, right? Talking about a lazy blues song, like Lazy has like this swing to it. I mean, that's a blues song.
Hmm.
The beginning of Never Before, with that beautiful jam before the verse, where they have this swing, and Richie's just playing this kind of bluesy solo. It's like it's not it's bluesy, but it's like it's good. It's got some style to it. And I mean, this is
Right.
like, I mean, I can hear AC playing the drums. I can hear Richie's guitar tone, but it's them just going through the motions. And that's why I
That,
don't like it.
yeah, through the motions. That's a great look at it. And I think too, we're coming off a Rat Bat Blue, which had this off the rails solo from John Lord, one of his best. And we've
Hmm.
got these big ramp ups, we've got a lot of energy in the song, and then it just drops down to a song that is very low tempo, very
Yeah.
basic. At least what we're hearing right now. Maybe we'll find something in it later on, but yeah, it's a huge jump to go from a song like that to a song like this. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily know how to reorder the album in a way that would have made more sense, but this feels like I said, like we're a track short. We need to do something. Well, let's do a blues. We're having a
Hmm.
hard time writing. We're two guys can't be in the room at the same time. We got to do something. We're running out of time. Let's throw a blues together, because that just seems like the obvious
Yeah.
go to when you're under a crunch.
Yeah. And I mean, given the internal conflict at the time in the band and the conditions that this album was recorded under, it's not much of a stretch
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see if we can find something in here that we maybe didn't notice before.
Could think of no way of edging along, lose this race. Oh, the line was moving slowly day by night. Everybody shuffling on to keep the
Those are some nice swells from John. I hadn't noticed those before. But I think the thing about the verse lyrics is that Ian's a great storyteller, and you think
mhm.
about a song like Anyone's Daughter, where he's telling the story, he's making you feel like this really happened. And I listen to this, and I feel like he's reading words off of a paper.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, I'm not really neither one of us are really lyrics
Mhm.
people, but it's like I think I don't know. I guess there's like a loose theme of like social injustice or whatever,
Mhm.
which I mean, around this time period in the US, the UK, it's like, yeah, those are themes that would resonate with people, but it's like I don't know that they particularly did anything creative with it here.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like it could have been one of those where, yeah, Gillen had gone off and scribbled some things on a paper like he did the lyrics for the concerto and came back and it was great, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And then you have it when you go off and you scribble lyrics and then you come back and it's like, oh, okay, this is garbage. And that's pretty much what this is. And I mean the tempo is just like excruciating. It's like it I think it suffers from being too slow. They should have
Mhm.
picked it up a little bit more
Yeah.
because it's way too slow, too slow.
Like if it would have been like da 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 da, like Adventures in Babysitting, right? They're on the stage and they're playing like da 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 da. I'm a babysitter, da 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 da. You know, like
Yeah.
like like that would have been, yeah, that would have been better.
But I mean, even like that, right? I mean, it's like you hear da 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 da. It's like, oh God, all right, come on now.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah,
it's like that's one of the first things that I learned how to play before I even like knew how to play a guitar. But I
yeah.
mean, it's like you could do better than this.
Mhm.
Like da 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 is not what Deep Purple should be playing.
I think that's one of the things that's a big turnoff as well. I hadn't really thought about that until you mentioned it, but you're right. And the other thing to me too is that it doesn't even sound like Ian Gillan. I mean, I've listened to a lot of interviews with Ian. I met him. He doesn't sound anything like this. And even when he's,
Yeah.
talking, telling stories in a song, this is just such a character voice instead of him sounding natural, that I think that throws me off a little bit too. In fact, when I first heard the song, I was wondering if it was Roger or John or somebody else, because it just
Yeah.
didn't even sound like it resembled Ian.
You know what? That's actually really a good way of putting it. It sounds like he's putting on a character, like he's manipulating his voice to kind of sound like it sounds to me like he's trying to pretend like he's like a drunk or something. He's like
Mm.
it's like like he's forcing himself to like create this character of like a surly kind of And I mean, that wasn't him,
Hmm. Now I'm gonna
He need
picture that the guy in the Black Knight on screen presentation that's stumbling around drunk at the
Oh
show.
geez, yeah,
That I'm gonna
him.
picture that every time I hear this song. You're right though, and if he's playing a character like he's like, okay, I'm gonna imagine that I'm the person in this situation. I'm gonna sing it like that. I get it, but he didn't have to change his voice to
Yeah.
accomplish that. Um, yeah, that really does kind of throw me off a little bit because there's like no resemblance to him in the song at
Yeah.
all. But yeah, I agree, and you're right. I'm not a lyrics guy, but I do look at the vocals as an instrument. So while I'm not necessarily paying attention to what notes Richie plays, I'm paying attention to how what he plays makes me feel. I do the same thing with the vocals, and I'm not feeling anything from this. I feel like it's somebody who
Yeah.
doesn't even want to be telling their own story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just very disconnected.
Well, we talked about that in the episode, the panel episode that we did with Derek and Julie when we were doing our episodes on grunge music, and that was one of my things. Is like it just sounded like these guys are like, well, I'm getting paid, so I have to say these words, but I don't really care about the story I'm telling. That's kind of what I'm feeling here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what the I mean, obviously there was an intent behind it. What it was, I don't know, but for me, it just doesn't grab me, I guess.
Yeah.
Plays in the line. Plays in the line. 9 long years been in line. Get nowhere. There is no reason. Oh, this line. Yeah, I don't care. Oh,
We're not getting I guess that part of why I don't feel that the band is really invested in this song and it feels like we got to add another track is because we're not getting any flourishes from Richie. John's not doing his normal, kind of stabbing rhythms and things like we're getting
Yeah.
more energy from Ian Pace doing those hi-hat lifts to kind of build a little bit of tension. But
Yeah.
that's the most I'm getting out of the song. I'm not getting anything out of Roger either.
Nope. Nope. I mean, even I'm listening, like each verse just sounds like the last. There's no
Mhm.
dynamics.
Yeah.
There's nothing interesting. Like even like Pacey's fills are just they're weak,
Mhm.
and I mean there and I think it's a lot of it is the tempo is just very slow. And even when Gillen was singing the first chorus, it sounded like when he said place in the line, it sounded like he was almost trying to catch up to the music. Like he
Mhm.
wasn't he wasn't leading the music or the chorus. He was
Right.
just kind of it was kind of dragging him along. Like,
Mhm.
I think a lot of it suffers from it being unoriginal, and the tempo is just like I
Yeah.
said, like we're listening to the second verse and I'm like, oh my God, when is this going to be over?
Normally when people will say, whatever the band is, like that's not a Van Halen song or that's not a White Snake song or that's not a Rainbow song or whatever. I'm like, yes, it is. They did the song. It's their song. It might not be in their normal style, but if there were
Mhm.
ever a song I would feel like this is not a Deep Purple song, it would probably be this one.
Mhm.
And one other one that I will make an argument for when I get to it in a later
Yeah.
era of the band. But it just, I guess because they're not putting their shine on it. They're doing very basic blues and
Mhm.
there's nothing deep purplish about it until you get to the chorus section where you're getting Ian being Ian again. But even with that, I feel like it's more let's get this done than it is a passionate vocal, even though he's singing
Right.
like these moaning sounds and things. Um, it just doesn't feel like it's like they said in Mr. Holland's Opus, you could play the notes on the page or you could play the sunset, right? I feel like he's
Mhm.
playing the notes on the page.
And I mean, there's a difference between this and then a year later you get a song like Mistreated,
Hmm.
which is light years better than this.
Yeah.
And I remember talking on the episode either about this or when we were covering Burn about how basically had most of the same musicians. Like you just, oh, okay, like I guess just Richie doesn't have it anymore.
Mhm.
Well, then Burn comes out and you're like, oh, there he is. Like
Right.
the whole band, and that's just a another case against it too. Is like, there's a lot of great blues tracks on the following album, and it
Hmm.
was because they were reinvigorated, they were invested in it. I mean, like I
Right.
said, look at Mistreated, right? It's just like it's definitely blues based, but they're doing something with it. It's dynamic, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Coverdale's vocals is like he's really invested in it. He's this no there's no like passion behind it. Like you said, it definitely feels like they were like, yeah, we got to throw something together so we have like the seventh track or however many
Mhm.
tracks are on this album. And it's not far not good.
And the funny thing is, you look at Machine Head, the previous album, and you go, okay, so they were an album track short and they needed to do something. And they're like, oh, what was that one song that we did when we were sound checking and recorded? And you get Smoke on the Water. Like this
Right.
album, it feels like that same thing, only you're getting place in line, which I just think shows really where the band was at. I mean, I know it was a
Hmm.
sad time for them. I still think there's a lot of incredible music on this album despite that, but if there's anything I could pinpoint as potentially suffering for the situation, it would have to be this song.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, well, let's see. We're a minute and 44 in. Maybe there's something.
Everybody's standing in the burning.
Okay, we're getting a little bit from John here, which is kind of nice. He's just doing these little like the stabs that I was talking about, that da 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 da, da, which is a rhythm I
Yeah.
wouldn't have expected. So it's a little something different and unique at least.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing stuff. It's like, it's still not great.
It's something,
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, there's something in there, but it's not really helping.
right?
Everybody's shuffling on, keeping a place in the line, place in the line.
I just realized I feel like Richie's almost dropped out of the song, almost
Yeah.
completely until we get to this point. Ian Pace is trying to bring something to it. He's playing a little more jazzy, trying to put a little swing feel on it. But at this tempo, there's only so much you're going to get out of a swing feel at a slow tempo.
Yeah. I mean, the song does, we're getting into the part now where the song does start to pick up a little bit, which does help. I mean, it's nice that we're getting out of that really just like really slow tempo.
Yeah.
But I mean, even they pick up, it sounds very subdued.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree, and we're getting to that point too, and I just think like everything up to here, we're like 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the song, and I feel like they could have just almost started here, or maybe like done like a couple passes of the riff and gone right to this, and it would have
Yeah.
been a better song, just eliminating that whole first part. But they also like they don't waste any time with repeating the bluesy riff a couple of times. They just get right into the vocal. So at least
Yeah.
there isn't like some kind of long drawn out beginning to it. I mean, the song's already 6.5 minutes, so it doesn't really need anything. But I appreciate that they weren't like, let's play the basic blues riff 2 times or 4 times, and then we'll start the vocal. They're just like da 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 da, boom, we're into the song. So I can at least
Yeah.
appreciate they didn't drag it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you think we're gonna make it? Don't you think we're gonna make it? Don't you think we're gonna make it now? We gotta please
Yeah, I mean the tempo go the drums double, which is great, and we're getting a little bit of like weak flourishes from Richie. Like, yeah, I'll throw a couple of notes in here. Like it seems like I mean I'm here, I might as well do it, as opposed to here's what I really want to
Yeah.
play. You know?
Yeah, I mean, even like I was listening for Roger, and I mean he's just playing the root note. He's
Yeah.
not doing anything interesting.
Hmm.
Um, you know, just kind of holding it down for, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
nobody's really doing anything interesting here.
Yeah, and I'm going to be curious because I can't really think ahead because like I can hear the song where we're at, but I'm going to be curious to see if Roger starts kind of opening up a little bit as the song goes on, as he often does. He did a
Hmm.
lot in Lazy. Like in the beginning, he was pretty basic, and then as the song went on, like he is all over the neck. So I'm going to be curious to see if we get that here. But again, it's the tempo, I think, that's the biggest problem, because even at a faster, or even at this double tempo, it's kind of like, the last few years, and until we saw them in August, the one song I haven't enjoyed live is one of my favorites, which is Space Trucking. As a drummer, I love that song. As just a fan of Deep Purple, I love that song. But when I've seen them play it live, there's just this almost lack of energy to it for me. And I pinpointed it to the way Ian Pace is playing it, because he's not doing, eighth notes on the hi-hat. He's just hitting the hi-hat where the snare is. And so it's kind of lacking that drive a little bit. Now, when they played it in August, they did a great job. I felt the energy in the song again. But the last few tours I hadn't, and that's why. And I feel kind of the same thing here. It has a tempo. It's a little bit more upbeat now, but it's still lacking a push,
Hmm. Yeah.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
yeah.
I get it.
So we'll see. But, I'm still holding out hope. I don't know that we needed a 14-minute solo here. Like this just went on way too long.
Well, I have to say that as it was building, it was getting better.
Hmm.
I did notice that Roger started, like you said, opening up a little bit more
Hmm.
instead of just going dun 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 dun. He
Yeah.
started dun 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 dun.
Hmm.
Dun. He started doing a little something. Pacey is still just not really doing much. He's
Hmm.
just playing it straight.
Yeah.
But the energy level is kind of deceptive, because it's like it is picking up pace, but it's just not sounding, it's still not sounding very inspired.
Hmm.
I will admit that like I said, as the solo picks up, the guitar solo picks up, it does get more to it, is getting more interesting, more exciting, I guess. Like you can tell, but it's not to the level of stuff that we know
Hmm.
that these guys can do, where they really kind of put the passion in there. Like think Child in Time as it's
Right.
progressing, right?
Mhm.
You don't feel that sense of urgency or that drama that you usually get.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I do love what Roger's playing behind that solo. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Why Didn't Rosemary, which he
Mm,
wasn't on. I don't know if he might have played that live in the early days, but it did have something that was completely unexpected, like to go to that particular rhythm. So I did like that. The beginning of Richie's solo was really like I couldn't remember the solo, and at first I'm like, wow, it doesn't even sound like he cares to pick these notes. It's so subdued and so in the background, and it's just like he's not picking like Richie Blackmore. And then when it started to pick up, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is kind of more reminiscent of what I would expect. It's got that flow. I love when he just hangs on that one note for a little bit, just picking that same note over and over. Kind of feels like he, maybe channeled a little bit of BB King, but I think it's the song itself is just too long at 6.5 minutes. And I think
hmm
this is one of the things I've noticed on a couple of songs. Like, yeah, what he's playing is fine, but the solo section could have been half, and they still could have done
Yeah.
a nice little build, and it would have been fine. And now we're going up. Now we're going to drop down again to do another build as we start John's solo section.
hmm
I just think it could have been cut down and would have been more enjoyable.
hmm
Mm.
Agreed.
But it wasn't a bad solo. Again, the playing is fine. It's
You were like,
it's
you're just like heaving a big sigh. I'm like, you didn't like it.
well, the playing is fine, but like that whole last section where he's just repeating the same thing over and over, like there's really no reason for that. Again, I feel like it could have been cut in half and it would have been
hmm
more cohesive. Like the solos sometimes just go on for these really long sections and it's not good enough of a jam to really support the need for solos to be this long.
No, no. I mean, and I mean they can, to qualify it too. They can and have done solos this long, but
Mhm.
they've been more dynamic. Like this didn't have
Right.
any dynamics, and like the last like what minute of the solo he was like, "Rah," he just like held one note and then he went,
Hmm.
"Rah." He didn't
Yeah.
do anything.
Hmm.
He just kind of like a lot of it when I was listening to it. It sounded like he was kind of like floundering around and making it up, which he
Right.
probably
Yeah.
was.
Hmm.
And even the beginning part where he was getting really low and like kind of like creeping up to a build, it just kind of felt like kind of like how you said that it felt like Gillen was reading the lyrics. It felt
Yeah.
like say like John Lord was trying to do this like okay, I'm going to the dynamic rather than feeling it. He
Oh.
thought about it too much.
Mm.
He's like, all right, this is the paint by numbers thing I'm going to do for this song, which is exactly what Richie did for his solo. Was he started off kind of soft and then built to this crescendo, not that it was necessarily great. So it sounded like the rest of the song just kind of really forced and unoriginal. So I mean, thinking about it in that way, it just sounded like I mean, we've heard plenty of outtakes and stuff from like CD versions and stuff over the years. Like this would have been better as like a bonus track, like jam
Yeah.
number one or something,
Mhm.
rather than sticking it on the album and immortalizing it forever.
Right. Right. And I mean I've never read anything specifically on this song, but it really does feel like a we need one more track,
Yeah.
you know. I mean I will say there were some good parts in both solos that I enjoyed, but I mean you could have condensed that down. The song could have been 4.5 minutes instead of 6.5 minutes, could have had a couple of just, good solos. And I don't know that we necessarily in this style of music need a big ramp up and then drop down and then do another big ramp up. Like I mean I get the tricks in trying to make it exciting, but I don't know, it's just not doing a whole lot for me. I was hoping I would find something more in it, but again, it could be a tempo issue. If the tempo was a little faster, they probably would have played the solos differently and they might have been more exciting. But yeah, I feel like it's just like, okay, I got this time to fill, I got to play something.
Hmm.
Yeah, it almost feels more like Mark One, going back to the early days when they were, trying to define their sound and figure out,
Yeah.
who they want to be as musicians in this band. And um, yeah, it felt like they didn't walk in with the confidence in this song that we're used to hearing in those performances.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
we got a little bit left, so let's see what we can find in the last 45 seconds.
Don't you think we're gonna make it? Don't you think we're gonna make it? Don't you think we're gonna make it now? We got a place in line. We're gonna make some time somehow. All right.
I do like this little ending part, but I remember the first time I heard it, I specifically remember this. I was like, wait,
Mm.
there's more song to this. They're still going.
Yeah, that's the well, I have to say it's probably the most creative part of the song is
Mhm.
instead of doing the hard stop, Roger just kind of bridges it by just holding that note and then they just kind of fade out on the little, on that little kind of I don't know what you call it, just just fading away on that, which I thought was like I said, probably the most creative way that they could have ended a terrible song.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, and I forget about it sometimes too because I thought it'd be a ba-da,
Yeah.
ba, which would have been, just the cherry on top. But I'll say that I guess that's one redeeming thing about the song. But I mean, yeah, even that, like when Roger was playing like the dun, 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 I'm thinking to myself, dun, 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 dun. It's just so juvenile, it's just so like basic.
Yeah.
It bothers me so much. I mean, I'm not saying that like everything that these guys have done is gold, but I mean, even think back a few years before the stuff that Mark One was doing is so much more adventurous than this.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, this is the band
I
that did
mean,
Chasing Shadows and Blind, and if you want to look at like later Mark One, but I think that the thing is deceptive. You
yeah,
think
like
you're going to get the concert ending like you do in Lazy, right? Where Richie comes in with the riff, and you're like, okay, they're all going to join in and do the famous concert blues ending, and you think
yeah,
you're going to get that, and then they change it, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. I do like the way they ended it, but. At the end, too, right before that part, we're getting a little more energy from Ian Pace. He's kind of putting
a
something
little
into it.
bit.
I feel like Richie's kind of like coming alive a little bit, but it's too late. I mean, it's the end of the song.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a rare miss
Yeah.
for this band. Like you could tell this is just these guys going through the motions
Mhm.
and coming up with probably having to come up with something to fill space. And
Yeah.
it wasn't creative, it wasn't dynamic, it wasn't uh, groundbreaking. It wasn't worthy of the other stuff that they were already doing. I could see if this were like on their first album or something, you're like, all right, they don't really know. But I mean, come
Mhm.
on. I mean, you had all these guys with all this experience behind them, and like even taking into account like not even Mark II, right, which has been like pioneering like some great stuff. But I mean, even look at like most of these guys were in Mark One, and they did stuff that was so adventurous and so
Yeah.
different, even if a lot of it was we covers and we kind of made fun of some of it, because Richie's playing sounded kind of wild
Right.
at the time. But at this point, they had found their footing, and
Mhm.
then to just like I said before, to regress and to go back to just like, oh, let's just do this 1-4-5 blues. It's like, get out of here. It's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing this for?
Well,
Why?
yeah.
Like, do it as a jam, do it as a studio jam, but like putting it on the album, like now it makes me even more upset. like like they could have done something experimental, or they,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, like they could have done like a John Lord instrumental, or they could have, I don't know, you know what I mean, they could have spent a little more time on this and kind of like turned it sideways and done something, blues, but like creative blues with it. But
Mhm.
it's like, and I mean, I get that they didn't have a lot of time and they were arguing, and this version of the band was pretty much over. But I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know.
and that's why I have to speculate about the how much that might have played a role, because if you look at in
Probably.
rock, you're getting the idea of if it's not exciting or dramatic, it doesn't belong on the album, right? So you're getting that going in, and then you get to this. I'm like, this is not exciting or dramatic. Where did you drop that? I mean, not like anyone's daughter is, but it's at least got a good story. It's got a good feel to it. Where at that point did they drop that rule and say, okay, we just wanted that for in rock. We're not always going to be that band.
I mean,
Um,
when Richie and Ian were like fighting all the time, I
yeah.
guess.
And that's why, and it is pure speculation on my part, I will admit that, but I have to think that that had to have played a role, because this is not the kind of music they were doing. Lazy as a blues song is levels above this. And
Hmm.
you're still getting songs like Rat Bat Blue, and Woman from Tokyo is a very cohesive song. So they had the
Right.
ability to do it. So I have to think there had to be something related to what was going on, or like I said, they're like, you guys didn't write enough material. I know you're having a hard time with the communication right now, but we need another track if we're going to put this album out. Because remember, this is the same band that on their first album did Mandrake Root, which is
Hmm.
incredibly adventurous and experimental and just wild. And now they're doing Place in Line.
Right, right. And I mean, who, we could speculate, all day long, or maybe there's
Mm.
even, there's something about it out there. But for, I think, general knowledge of what was going on at the time and with
Yeah.
the album, I mean, that's probably a safe assumption to make, is that this was just a last minute throwaway. Like, all right, we need something. And like you said, you can do that with Smoke on the Water, right?
Mm.
Sabbath did it with Paranoid.
Right.
Kiss did it with Rock and Roll All Night.
Ugh.
But you don't always, you, no, no, right. But when it first came out, though, right, people weren't going, ugh, right? Nobody had heard it
Right.
before.
Well, no,
But
we talked about this when we did the Kiss episode on the Haskin Cast
yeah,
podcast. It's
yeah.
the way they sing the chorus that just bothers me. The every day, it just sounds like a
No,
kid's song, and that, not a Kiss song, a kid's song, and that
right.
really bugs me. But it's a great jam otherwise. Like it's a fun song. But when I say it's just like every time I hear that's what comes to mind. I'm like, that just ruins the song for me.
But but the point being is that not every, hey, we got to throw that story, the famous story you hear for a lot of bands that are big, is that have a hit, is just like, oh, the producer comes in at the 11th hour, oh, we need another song, and so
Mhm.
we scribbled this down and we recorded it in 10 minutes, and now it's like multi-platinum. Well,
Right.
not this. It doesn't happen every day. You don't strike gold every time. So it's
Yeah.
Place in Line was not even close. I really think that they either did that, or it just came out of one of the studio jams that should have been a bonus track on a CD 20 years later, and instead it wound up on the album, which is
Right.
infuriating because it's but I mean I don't want to get into the whole album, but I mean the whole album's vibe is just off. I've always felt it, like just the production, the performances, it's never been as up to snuff for me. I mean, even on the good songs, like yeah, like Rat Bat Blues, a great song.
Mhm.
Woman from Tokyo, another great one. The rest of them are escaping me at the moment because I don't listen to this
Like
album a
Mary
lot. But
Long and Our
I just
Lady and Super Trooper.
yeah, they were like, and those I thought were like okay, you know what I
Mm.
mean? It's just like as opposed to like I said, the album that came out not even a year before it was Machine Head. It was like I can't think of a song on it that I don't like. But I
Right.
mean the production, the vibe, like
Mhm.
the sound, it sounds so different. This just sounds really just dated and drab and uninspired, and
Interesting.
that was the mood. That was the mood in the band at the time.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's why it came out like this song in particular. And
Mhm.
I think it was definitely a misstep, probably one of the worst songs in their catalog.
Well, and when I started the podcast, I was very open about the fact that there are some songs that this band recorded that I'm not a fan of. I mean, and it's so reasonable. You can't expect a band that has a 24 album catalog to, every song is not going to please you. There's some
Right.
some that you might like, there's some that you might, yeah, that's okay. And there's some that you just may like, I don't ever really need to listen to this song for maybe another 10 years and I'll come back and see if I like it later,
Yeah.
which is something I've said on the show. I always suggest to people, if you don't like it, maybe wait a decade or so and give it another shot. If you don't like it, fine, you gave it the chance. But this is one that I've just never found much in, and I don't feel bad saying that, because the expectation of a band coming up with 200 songs and you love every one of them is, it's just ridiculous to think that that's going to happen. But what I would do in this case is I'll throw it out to the audience. If you're following the show on Facebook or Blue Sky, if there's something that you like about this song, if there's something that maybe it's associated with a memory or something, like, I'd be curious to hear what you guys like about this song, because this is one that unfortunately I'm just not finding a lot of joy in myself. But everybody's got their own taste. They either thought it was good enough to release, or didn't care enough to go, we need to do something better by that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So I yeah, that one.
I mean, I tried to think of it from like both points of view. I'm like, right,
Mm.
it's like what would an argument be that this is a great song? And the only thing that I could come up with is that someone could say is that, well, this is Deep Purple just stripped down to the bare bones,
Mhm.
like just like five guys in a room, like just doing their thing. Um, like no tricks and no like pretension and no trying to like break the mold.
Mhm.
But I mean, even that, I mean, after listening to the song, you just like, no, because even then it would come through if they gave a shit. And it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like they really did.
Yeah, that's it. Because I mean, you can play a basic blues. It almost feels like a cover because they're not putting Deep Purple flourishes and things in it. They're really literally starting off with basic blues riff.
Right.
And if Richie was throwing in some flourishes, if he was, being the typical Richie we're used to hearing, it would have felt a little more Deep Purple. I mean, we're probably getting more from John Lord, I think, than anyone as far as that goes. Roger's got a nice part under Richie's solo, but other than that, yeah, I'm not finding a lot that feels like it's a Deep Purple song. It really does feel like a cover.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? Even then, I mean, it's like they hadn't really done covers in oh boy. I have to think for a second. When Mark II got together, the Mark II albums didn't have any covers,
Right.
right? So, even at this point, I mean, they started off by like half of their albums being covers, right?
Mhm.
Mark One.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they were just like, hey, let's do an old, I don't know, Muddy Waters song or something like that, even that would have been something, it would
Right.
have been. But I mean, who knows if they would have like, you know, screwed that one up too? I don't know.
Sure.
Um, but I mean, if they really wanted to do a blues song, like pick something inspired that they already you know, that they already know, and then put their spin on it. But I mean, like, yeah, I guess it wasn't realistic because at that point, it's like they probably didn't have that kind of communication going between them,
Right.
or that
Yeah.
inspiration, or that kind of like, hey, we should try this. It was just kind of like, all right, let's finish this. We gotta shut up.
Well, and the idea of doing covers was something that the band was heavily against anyway, because they're like, we can write our own songs, and that's
Sure,
interestingly
yeah.
what led to Rainbow, because Richie wanted to do Black Sheep of the Family, the band didn't want to do it, and he's like, I'll just go record it on my own, and then that turned into, hey, I think we've got something here. I'm really getting tired of what's going on in Purple.
Yeah.
Let me just put Elf together and then destroy them, and do Black Sheep of the Family. And so it is interesting. I agree. But if they were going to put their energy into kind of making a cover of their own, they could have also done that with this and made it a little more purplish, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess not to get too, too much into, broad, you know, but I mean, kind of broad, you know, topics. But I mean, since I already got into the album after this,
Mhm.
I mean, you can just tell that, Richie, and the rest of the guys that stayed in the band, once they got in Coverdale and Hughes, year later, they, like, the guys that were already in the band that sounded so disinterested and bored here
Mhm.
sounded reinvigorated. And
Right.
then you listen to what Roger and Ian went on to do in their solo projects out of Purple, and you're like, okay, so I just, maybe these guys, suck now. It's like, no, they sucked together.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they had to
Yeah.
be apart for a while
Mhm.
until Perfect Strangers to recapture any kind of chemistry. But it's like, you could just tell. Listen to Burn, listen to Butterfly Ball, listen to Ian Gillan solo album, that great version of Child in Time that he did,
Ah.
and the rest of the album. It's the musicians and the inspiration and the kind of vibe that they surrounded themselves with.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, you could tell from this song that it was just over. It was off.
Yeah, I
And
agree. I guess there's only one bonus track on this album that we get on the 25th anniversary, or the
mm,
remastered version that Roger did. I think they were getting closer to 40th by that point, but
yeah.
um, is Painted Horse. And I can honestly say I don't know how that would have worked track listing wise, but I would have rather seen Painted Horse on this album than
hmm
Place in Line. I think it's a much
I
better
would
song.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. It's like, yeah, they could have messed around with the song ordering and put on Painted Horse, which,
Mhm.
if I mean, I haven't heard it that often, but I remember thinking it was like, it was not bad. I can't remember my first impressions on it. I didn't think it was like awesome, but
Mhm.
like, oh, this is great, but it's better than this.
Yeah.
But in the whole scheme of the album, I don't know how it would have fit in, but it's like, I'm sure that they would have been able to make it fit if they found a decent track ordering for it.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
I
anyways,
agree.
this is
Yeah.
this is this is what we have, and yeah, sad to say that my feelings have not changed.
Well, but you know what? I appreciate that you gave it a shot, and we're looking at it from a different standpoint, because when we do these critical reviews, it's a lot different than casual listening. And we found a couple things that were nice, and there's a couple nice things in Richie solos and John solos and Roger what he's playing behind Richie solo. Then it's interesting because he just goes back to that but underneath John. He just
Yeah.
goes right back to the blues again. So yeah, it's a shame, but like I said, it's unrealistic to think that a band that does 200 plus songs, you're gonna love every single thing they did. And
Yeah.
I'm not shy. I don't have to have that confirmation bias and go, oh my god, everything these guys did is they're gods and they're perfect and everything. Because it really comes down to personal taste. I'm sure there's people out there that like this song. I would just be curious as to what it is they hear in it that pleases them, because it just, for me, it just doesn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, the only thing that I could think of that somebody would like is that they just really enjoy the kind of stripped down nature of Purple, just not trying to break any new ground, and
Mhm.
just, you know, kind of just doing a jam. But
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard outtakes. I know I've heard outtakes, and I can't recall right now if I've done episodes on the Deep Purple podcast of them doing like blues jams or just studio jams or whatever, which have sounded like more. And I know Nate and I did an episode where, and I think it was with the Steve Morse version of the band where they were, kind of goofing around and doing some kind of jam, and it might have even been a blues jam, and it's sounded like, better than this. But I mean, the
Yeah.
band was also getting along, so it's
Right.
like, and it's but yeah, I think that one of the biggest things this suffers from is just like, I mean, the tempo is probably indicative of just the mood,
Mm.
like you can feel
Yeah.
the mood of everybody, just like, the slumped over shoulders and just
Mm.
the shaking of the head, just like, this isn't working, it's like the
Yeah.
tempo just tells you everything, doesn't it?
It's so funny that you say that because I talked about, when Corey and I were doing Backtrack Aerosmith Revisited, and I would say it just sounds like they're all recording this in the same room, looking at each other and smiling and enjoying recording the song. And you can feel that in the music. And I feel like this is a song that they almost might have just completely recorded separately, like Roger and Ian Pace go in and they lay it down. Richie comes in at 3 a.m. and does the guitar tracks. As soon as he's gone, John comes in and does his part, and then Roger and Ian do the, figure out the lyrics. Like it feels very disconnected, and as
Yeah.
opposed to Rat Bat Blue, the song before it, which is like you almost feel like they're in the room looking at each other, going, "This is a kick-ass song."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's yeah, sometimes they rose to the occasion and sometimes not, and it's that's that.
Yeah, well, I certainly appreciate you giving it another shot and coming back on the show to talk about it. I'm sure your next visit will have something more enjoyable to discuss. But in the meantime, guys, check out the Deep Purple podcast. They have been going for years, never missed a week. Every show is just enjoyable, even when the subject is Candy Givens. But that being said, that
Yes.
that being said,
How did she get back into this?
it always comes back to Candy Givens. But that being said, thank you guys for joining us for this episode. A little different feel to this one, I know. But yeah, if you guys have some feelings on the songs, go on Blue Sky on the post for this song. Go on the Facebook group for this song and put your thoughts in there. I'd love to hear if there's something that kind of strikes you as enjoyable or maybe why you have an attachment to the song. Check out the Deep Purple podcast. The link, as always, is in the show notes. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode and thanks for listening.